Okay, great. So, excuse me, repetitively again, we're going to be talking about how to manage an alliance, and it's going to be starting out from us creating the alliance, and even before that as well, kind of talking about how you want to go in with this, with your mindset for someone who wants to be a leader for an alliance, and some of what those realistic expectations are going to be for you leading an alliance, and then the work you're going to have to put in. Now, again, we'll talk about it from a couple different perspectives. We'll start off with if you're just an individual, and let's say you're loading into the game and you just want to start an alliance, whether you have no experience or if you have some experience, then there will be the cases where, let's say you have a group of friends and you want to start an alliance with, or maybe you have a full group because you have maybe a bigger group or a jumper group's worth of an alliance, like so you might have 40 to 50 players and you're starting the alliance out with. So again, we're going to talk about it from a couple different perspectives. Our outline is posted in voice channel chat, and that's also going to be a place where anyone can ask questions as well. Again, creating an alliance, we're going to talk about setting up your notice and your declaration boards. We'll talk about leader and officer tasks and responsibilities, keeping track of player activity and good practices to implement there. We'll also talk about your tech or your technology route path. So what is the ideal tech path that you want to take as an alliance when you're just starting out, right? These are really important things because it's nice when you get these down in the beginning, because if you know the technology that you're going to be going for immediately. And then we'll also talk about the comparative differences there between if you're in a peaceful server where you're able to freely develop, or if you're in a war server where you're doing a little bit more kind of PvP focus. Then we'll talk about recruiting for your alliance. We'll talk about that, how to do it internally within the kingdom, and then we'll also talk and touch a little bit about how to do that externally through resources outside of the game. And then the next points we'll talk about is kind of sending quality alliance mails, right? What kind of alliance mails do you want to send? How can that really be a big benefit for your players? And then we'll also talk about how to come up with a few different types of ranking structures. So if you're someone who runs an alliance and you're interested in, what does being an R1 mean? Or can it mean something? What, same thing for R2, R3, R4, right? Can these positions have different statuses that you allocate to them, right? And then how do you send that information out to your players so that way they're informed? We'll talk about utilizing the calendar and a couple other areas as well. So let's start off first with the beginning, right? If you are going to create an alliance, what is the expectation that you should have as a player? Now, just for any curiosity, for those who've joined our sessions before, I like to ask questions out to the audience to see who exactly has some experience. And then, of course, just also general ones. And also, just as a friendly reminder, if you are a visitor or a new member of the server, we just won't call on you, but you're more than welcome to ask a question in the voice channel chat, just out of respect. Now, real quick, as a show of hands, who here has led an alliance before? Whether it's in Infinity Kingdom or if it's in a game that's another kingdom builder outside of Infinity Kingdom, right? If you've been in R6 or an R5, depending on the game that you've played, right? If you've ran an alliance, how many people here? Just a show of hands, right? And you can use a little hand feature just to get an idea on how many leaders we have or people that have led alliances. Okay, awesome. So about 7, 8, 9 or so. Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating there. Okay, so that gives me at least a little bit of an idea for where we're at. Okay. Now, as a lead, right? And again, if you want, you can type this out in voice channel chat. It might be easier to do this one right before we dive in. What do you think are some realistic expectations that someone who wants to lead an alliance in game, in Infinity Kingdom, in these types of kingdom builders should have? And again, you can type this out in voice channel chat. If you're someone who's a current member and you have roles on the server, you're more than welcome to raise your hand, and I'm happy to call on you. Again, if you're a visitor or if you're new to Discord, again, please feel free to write that out in the voice channel chat. But I would love just to see, what do some of you think are some qualities that, and better yet, expectations that if you're going to lead an alliance, what do you think are some things that you should go in with before you decide to lead an alliance? What do you think are some expectations that you should have as a leader? And again, you can type that in the voice channel chat. I'll give it just a second. Okay. Let me see. Okay, Sono said activity, never sleeps. Asvali said cooperations. Okay, that's a good one. Godsend said players availability. No, that is definitely one as well. Being thick like me. I'll be honest. I want to throw that back to Chingy and Tyrese. I'm forgetting what that song is called, but sure, why not? Uh, dear Lord. So, anyways, my buddy Shadow always coming in hard. So again, I would say good suggestions as far as what are some things that a leader should come in with. I would say it is more of, and again, this is my thought on when you're coming in as a lead, right? You are responsible, right, for the most part, and more so accountable for player activity that is in that's going to be in your alliance, and more importantly, you as a lead are essentially going to be customer support, right? You are going to be tech support. You'll be, you'll be a therapist at times, right? So yes, as a leader, you should be active, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on 24/7, but you are essentially you're the rep, right? You are the representative for your group of players, and that is shown in a multitude of ways. Right? Are you sending out good alliance mails? Right? Are you someone who likes writing mails? Right? That's an expectation to have, right? Because again, as a lead, typically you're going to be the person who most likely should be or would be writing the majority of the mails, right? Outside of officer help and support. Right, you are going to be the one who's setting typically the tech path. You'll be instructing officers on what the next tech path will be. You will be, again, being socially active within your alliance chat, so people see that you're alive, which is always nice, and that you're present at times. Doing things like setting markers, obviously, is another task that you'll do. You'll probably write things out in your calendar as well to let people know on any kind of upcoming events, if you're doing upcoming sieges. You'll also probably be getting a lot of questions. Right, typically as an alliance lead, as an example for myself, right, when I wake up, and I actually did a video on this as well, which is kind of like gosh, let me see if I could find it. This is a really good video I did, and I think I titled it as a day in the life. I did, okay. So I put this out like a long time ago. When was this? I put this out in February. Okay, so I think this was back in beta, but I'm just gonna post this in the voice channel chat. This is a really good video if you are looking to get an idea on how you would wake up and what you would be doing, essentially, as an R6. And I'll probably make a newer one because this one, again, is a little bit older, though the content in it is still relevant. You'll see me walk through what I do as a lead, from the messages I get in game to the messages I get on Discord to me taking, even though I think I summed this video up in a very short period, right? Sometimes when I wake up, it's about an hour to 2 hours, sometimes of work that you're doing just before you even get the opportunity to do anything past that, right? You're answering messages, you're going through your chats. Then after that, right, if you have a Kingdom Discord server, you're then catching up on council chats, officer chats, you're catching up on global chats, and then, right, you're maybe scrolling through your alliance chat in game to scroll up maybe as far back as you can go, just in case you didn't miss anything. Right, and then after that, right, in addition to responding to the DMs that you're going to get in game or on Discord, then you're having to follow up on those, right? So you are then and then essentially at that point, right, this is everything you have to do. So for me, right, in my typical morning, right, sometimes again you're spending that hour, maybe 2 hours. It just depends on how many messages you get and how much you have to really do. But it could be up to that. Especially if you have a lot of people that are asking questions. Maybe there's mails you have to send out. I mean, again, there's a lot that goes into it just when you're waking up on a daily basis for players you have to respond to. If there's maybe a voice call or a meeting, I mean, it's really something that is a lot more time demanding, I think, than the average person who's just coming in as a regular player would think, along with the level of management skills, really, and multitasking that you do as a lead. In addition to that, if you're let's say you're someone who's not willing to voice with other players or even voice with other leads, right? That can also be restricting. It can limit what your outreach can be as a lead, and it can also limit what possibilities you would have to connect more with your officers along with your members. And then even more than that, other leads that are in the server that you're in, right? Because typically if you're a lead, especially if you're someone who's at the top of the alliance boards, let's say you're within top 10, top 20, or even higher than that, right? You could start getting messages from people that are outside of your alliance. I'll give you a brief example just before we move on to the next point, is that let's say you're an alliance in the top 10. Well, you might get message from alliances that are possibly within your faction or even outside of your faction that are lower than you, asking you, hey, can you help us take a city? Or, hey, can you help us, go and clear these players at the city that we want to take, right? Those are just some examples of types of messages that you can get. Other than that, it might be, hey, can we join your alliance? Or, if you're active. Or maybe they're just asking you a general game question. Again, as a leader, there is a lot that goes into managing alliance, and this is pretty much across the board. If you play any kingdom builders, for the most part, a lot of this is very consistent, and just typical common denominators that you're going to find are ways that you would go into approaching leading an alliance, and again, how potentially demanding it really can be. That's why I like to always try and explain that to players before they decide to manage or run an alliance, because usually individuals who have some form of management skills, if they're good at multitasking, if they enjoy the kind of customer service type, the example I get is if you've worked retail before, and it's a very customer service based job where you're doing a lot of people engagement. Right, you have people that are constantly asking you questions. Sometimes they might have a conversation with you too as well in the store. And if you're not a people person, if you're not someone who enjoys talking with others, you might find being a leader of an alliance a little bit more challenging in some areas than if you were. Anyways, let me see here. I think that covers that part. Let me take a look at voice channel. I'm not sorry. Oh, too funny. Thanks, Shadow. All right, so that, I think, more or less covers our first point, which kind of goes into what are some of the expectations there, right, when you're going into creating an alliance. We did touch a little bit on leader, some responsibilities. We'll dive into that a little bit more, but this kind of goes into, right, if you're going to create an alliance, right, what's the perspective, what's the mindset that you want to go in with? Does anyone have a question in regards to that topic before we move on to the next? And again, you're more than welcome to raise your hand if you'd like. I'm happy to call on you, again, if you are an existing member. If you're not an existing member, whether you're new or you're visiting, you're more than welcome to ask your question in the voice channel chat. In addition, if it's just easier to ask a question in the voice channel chat, you're more than welcome to as well. And I'll give it a minute, just in case anyone wants to type anything, and then if not, we'll move on to the next topic. Oh, I didn't read the second part there of your GIF. I was hoping you'd hang up. Thanks. My boy. Oh, so good. I don't know if I'd say it's the game's fault. Alrighty, I don't think any other questions or anyone has their hand up who's a current or existing member. Okay, so we will move on then to the second topic. Now, the second topic we're going to cover is, and we could probably keep this a little simpler too as well. Let me see here. Okay, so after you, and I'm going to go in order, kind of treating this like if we were in a new server and you just got done making the alliance. So after you set up the alliance, what do you think, and this is just a question for the audience, again, you're more than welcome to type an answer out in the voice channel chat or raise your hand if you're an existing member with roles. What do you think is the next thing that you would do after you create the alliance? What do you think is the next most important thing, or some of the next most important things that you would do after you create the alliance in a new server? All right, and I'll give it just a few minutes, or just a minute here, in case anyone wants to type a guess or an answer out in the voice channel chat. Again, if you're an existing member, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and we'll call on you. But for any visitors or new members, we just won't call on you, but you're more than welcome to ask a question in the voice channel chat. Okay, so Godsend said recruit members. Okay. Hefizile, and I apologize if I'm butchering that name on pronunciation. Said set new rules. Okay. Okay. So recruit members and set new rules. So I would say those are two really good initial starting next points that, or next steps, I should say, that you would get to once the alliance is created. So usually, the most important thing that you would probably be doing first would more or less be something like a recruiting, and then ideally, if you're even able to, set any kind of guidelines, or even if you're able to, and sometimes it's actually good to have these things set up beforehand, right? So briefly touching on that, when it comes to setting kind of new rules, or if it's any kind of general guidelines, now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can either pre-type these things out, which is still good regardless, and then you can post them in your declaration board, or you can post them on your notice board. I guess better yet for your notice board, because your notice board is internal, right? Which is another quick thing to decipher. So when you click on your alliance, and especially for those of you who are in game and you just kind of want to follow along, right? You'll look at, for example, you set your alliance up. When you click on the alliance tab, the first thing you're going to see in the top right corner is the notice board. That is your internal alliance announcement board. When you click on the arrow on the right side of it, you'll see the declaration board. The declaration board is the public board. That is what someone will see if they're not in your alliance and they click on, or even if you're anyone, right? If you go on the leaderboards, for example, and you click on all right, so sorry, I had to take a brief pause there. So again, when you are loading up your alliance and you click on the alliance tab, it's in nearly the bottom right corner, but a little bit to the left once you get to the bottom part of your window. Then you'll click on your alliance, and then in the top right corner again, you're going to have the notice and the declaration announcement board. Usually you would want to put some kind of good tips. Maybe you're promoting your Discord, maybe you are giving some general advice. Maybe you're just posting maybe what some of the server rules are right on your on your notice board, again, because that's your internal one. Then you can also, if you want, so if you want to go a step further, right, this is going to be a little bit of a pro tip. So if you want to take it a step further, what you could do is you could pre-draft a 500 or like 495 character template, where it's basically, and the reason I say that is because if you want to send a direct message to someone in game, you would have it at 500, because again, you're limited to 500 characters for the length of a message you can send in game just to another player directly. So you could write up some kind of 490, 495 character message that just gives kind of a top-down information on what your alliance's expectations are, right, and kind of like a new player welcome message, if you will. And then you can just copy and paste that for every new player that joins your alliance. This is actually something that I've done and most likely will continue to do. The big reason why is because when you do it this way, it more or less ensures that every player sees what the rules of the alliance are, and also the rules of the server as well, especially if you have those, because the one thing we should always assume is that you cannot rely on players reading your notice board, or even every single player reading an alliance mail that you send out. Now, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go overboard with every time you send alliance mail out, you need to break that up into, 2 direct messages and then go through and copy paste that to every single player in the alliance. But at certain points or certain junctures, it is good to message every player in your alliance at certain milestones when certain things happen in a server. Again, one example of that is when a new player joins your alliance, you immediately just already have something. You can put it like in a Google Doc or on a notepad, and you just copy and paste that into their, as a DM for them to read. And again, that just ensures that they get that information the moment they join the alliance and that expectations have been set. So it also limits what could happen with that player after they join your alliance because they don't know what they can or cannot do. Right? So it's good to set that expectation at the beginning. Trust me, this will be one of the biggest lifesavers that you as a leader ever do for the duration of time that you're leading the alliance. It is extremely important, and I'm sure you're going to find a lot of benefits from it as well. Okay, now when it comes to, and then let me briefly just touch on the internal recruiting portion here as well, and then we'll open the floor for questions before we move on to the next topic. So, when it comes to you doing recruiting, right? So again, you've updated your notice board, you've updated your declaration board, you got your copy paste template message already ready to go for new players that are joining your server, right? So, and you already have that. Now you have to get new players into your alliance, right? Because obviously you drafting up your templated message won't do you any good if you don't have players coming in. So what is the most efficient way to really go about doing this? So internally within your server, you can do it a couple ways. It's also good if you take time to draft up a templated message, which is like a recruiting message that you can use in World Chat and in Kingdom Chat. Now, it's nice, I would say, if you have the ability to use an emulator. For those of you who, if you're able to play on your desktop or your laptop using an emulator, I recommend it. And the reason I say this, even though it's not absolutely necessary, the reason I say this is because when you use an emulator, you can format your message so it's structured, meaning that when you post it, so if you've ever seen someone post a World Chat or a Kingdom Chat message and you notice how it looks kind of purdy and it'll look nice and organized, it might have some line breaks, it might have some indents in it, right? It might have some special characters to use for kind of topic points. They are most likely doing that on a desktop or a laptop using an emulator. And then they'll copy and paste it from something like a Google Doc or a Microsoft doc, and then, or a Word document of some sort, and then they'll paste it in to the message body or the message window, and then post it. And then it'll format like that when you see it posted as the actual message in World or Kingdom Chat, or even if you're sending a direct message. But if you try and copy and paste it from your mobile phone, as an example, it most likely will not format, at least not from what I've seen happen. So again, this is really good to do if you want to start out at the right point. So again, you're going to have your recruiting message already written up. So the moment that you get into the server, you can copy paste that into World Chat and the Kingdom Chat. And then if there's any, and then you also want to monitor World Chat or Kingdom Chat in case, because you're going to get a lot of players that are going to say, hey, I'm looking for an alliance, or I'm active, is anyone recruiting? You can then message those players as well and say, yes, we are. If you're more than welcome to come and check us out, right? Maybe you give them a little copy paste message on kind of what your alliance is about so they kind of know what they have going in. And then again, those are the two ways at least when it comes to how you're going to utilize World Chat and Kingdom Chat that you can take advantage of. The third way I would give you is going through your settings menu and doing the invite all. So what you would do is, let's say you're in game right now and you clicked on your alliance tab, you would click on the settings button, which is the two cog wheels that are in the bottom right hand corner. Once that opens, you'll see a settings menu window pop up with 4 options. You would click invite, and then after you click invite, you would then click invite all. And this just makes it easier, and again, keep in mind, we're talking about in the beginning of a server. It makes it easier for you to just get as much new player incoming traffic as possible. And then you would just do this, I would say, every 30 minutes, every hour or so. And then the fourth point I'll give you, which is my last tip here, is, and this is just kind of when it comes to that recruiting stage for the 2 big things you want to have in the beginning after creating your alliance, with the recruiting and then also with having some of those messages already drafted, you then want to keep your alliance open, right? Do not have it on invite only, right? You want to leave it open. Why do you want to, now as a question to the audience here, why do you think it's important to fill your alliance up with active players as fast as humanly possible? Can anyone take a guess on why would you want to fill your alliance up with players as fast as humanly possible in the beginning of a server? Why do you think that's important? And anyone, you're more than welcome to answer in the voice channel chat. Again, if you're an existing or current member and not a visitor or new member, you're more than welcome to raise your hand, and we're happy to call on you. But otherwise, feel free to go into voice channel chat and type a answer if you think you have a good one. Well, I shouldn't even say good one, just if you want to take a stab at it. Because more or less, there's no wrong answers. Okay, so I said tech. Half, as Lay said, to upgrade tech more faster. Remesh said upgrade cities help requests. So, again, all good answers there when it comes to what the focus is. The main reason really is that if you're able to hit 50 players and max at 50 really early, what happens is, and this is just more of to focus on the intricacies of the answers, because what a few people have said is correct, but I want to explain why it's correct. The main reason is because when you join a new alliance, you have a cooldown timer before you can start donating to tech. Now I can't remember because it's been a while since I've joined an alliance, but I want to say it's something like 4 or 6 hours. I'm sure someone else knows, but it's a couple hours at least that you have as a cooldown before you can start donating to tech. So the important thing is that if you're recruiting and you're getting a lot of incoming player activity or just player traffic that's joining your alliance, the faster they join, or the sooner they join, and the sooner you hit 50, the sooner that cooldown timer will go off, so that way you can start donating. You can have a higher amount of donations, and hopefully eventually 50 donations, right, per each refresh, going towards your tech development. It also will allow for you to start then hitting your first big family boost before potentially other alliances do, meaning that you're going to increase your player capacity, and then you can immediately bring in just 10 more people right off the bat. And again, you're just basically repeating that cycle as that goes. And again, we'll talk about the tech tree and kind of the tech recommended path a little bit later. But yes, in short, those answers are correct. But the big reason why, again, is because you want to start that cooldown, that tech donation cooldown unlock a lot faster by getting the players in to then start donating to that tech. All right, so I think that covers it there for. Let me see what else we have here. Let me just go through and let me see here. All right, let me go through and just see what we have here for any other questions that might have been asked. Okay. So, all right, awesome. So let me go ahead and take a look now. All right, awesome. I think we're good there. Now, any questions in regards to recruiting or as far as anything related to setting up any kind of pre-drafted messages? I don't know if anyone has a question there, just before we move on to the next topic. Where is... All right. That's my buddy Potato just doing work. All right. So, cool. All right. So, let's move on then to the next topic. So, the next topic we're going to touch on is going to be, let me see here if we want to talk about tech path. I do want to talk about the leader and officer tasks. Okay. So, let's do this. We will talk about, because we talked about recruiting, we talked about the notice boards. We talked a little bit about donations, why you want to get players in as fast as possible. Okay. So, next we're going to talk about, let's do keeping track of player activity. So, when it comes to how you're utilizing, again, if you're in game and you click on your Alliance tab, you can then click on players, or I think it's members actually. And then when that opens up, right, you're going to see a list of all players that are within your Alliance. In addition to that, you are going to see a status, right? And let me just give an example here, because I know sometimes it's always good if we can just post. Let me see what I have. Here we go. Okay, so here's an example of you seeing, and I'm just going to post this in voice channel chat because it'll be nice just to kind of follow along so some people can take a look as well. Okay, so there's a screenshot I just posted in voice channel chat, and this is just a brief example of what you would have or what you'd be looking at for your typical member list. Now, you'll notice here, right, you see some players are hyper, right, which is essentially, right, the highest status that you can get. Let me see here if they even have a different breakdown for that. No, they don't. Okay. So it usually goes hyper, active, and then it goes present, and then silent. Now, how the statuses are described is that if you log into the game at least once a day within 3 days, and at least 4 times in total, you'll get hyper status. If you log into the game once a day for the next 3 days to get active status, if you log in the game more than twice across 3 days, you'll get present status. If you log into the game twice or less for the next 3 days, you'll get silent status. Right? So it more or less means that you're probably logging in about once a day, if not less than that. Now, the thing I want to say here is that even though I do like going for even though I do like going for or utilizing the statuses that the game is providing, the other area that I like is just limiting that margin of error. And again, I'm going to post the statuses here for anyone that's just curious and following along if you want to read that. So it's not just going off of what I'm saying. But the thing to keep in mind is that sometimes you will still have active players, and I can tell you because I've seen this happen quite a lot, where you'll still have active players, but they might show up as present or hyper, or excuse me, present or active, and sometimes in rare cases may even show up as silent, but they could still be donating. Now, yes, at the end of the day, you more or less still want to remove any potential silent or present players at a certain time. But one of the things you can do, which will give you just an absolute guarantee on a player's activity, is you keep a spreadsheet of activity. An example of this, and let me see if I can show you guys. Oh man, I should have already had this loaded. I'm all over here preaching, having things loaded up. Let me see here. Give me one moment, and I'm going to show you an example of what we do for our spreadsheets. And let me see what I have here. Alliance. Here we go. I think this is it. Alliance activity. Oh, no, here it is, family. I got to go in here. Okay, cool. So let me post this. I'm going to give you guys a screenshot. You can look at this in voice channel chat. And this is just going to give you a very simple example of how you can go about organizing your activity. I think that this is something that immediately will pay dividends for you when it comes to, one, keeping track of players that are in your alliance. And I'm also going to give you an example of like just some other things that we do on some of the tabs, right? But this is just going to show you again, this will show you a brief example of how we do it kind of across a period of time. Let me see if I can give you a different one here. Fresh start. Okay, you know what? Let me get you guys a screenshot of this one. This will be a lot better. I think a little bit easier as well. Okay, cool. So again, if you're looking at voice channel chat now, I'm posting something there so you can take a look. And again, this is an older spreadsheet. This is not necessarily a current one that we're doing. And again, there's been some columns in between when we were doing this kind of every 3 days or so that were also removed as they did that. But here's an example. If you look at the voice channel chat, you'll see I just posted a screenshot, and it's pretty standard, right? So again, usually you want to keep track, and if you just want to have it be extremely simple, what I would recommend is just track tech donations and total power, right? If you really want to have it be super simple. The reason I say that is because, one, tech donations obviously are extremely important. If you're not donating to tech, you're more or less kind of just wasting space in a sense, right? If you're not active, then, I mean, typically if you're not donating to tech at all, you're pretty much not active. And there's a chance that either that player is just inactive in general, maybe they're a spy in your alliance, or maybe anything in between. Maybe it's a farm account as well, it could be. So in those situations, yeah, you would typically go about doing something like this. And again, keep in mind, right, a lot of our middle columns, when we were usually, the way we did it is we took stats every 2 to 3 days. So every 2 to 3 days, we would go through all of the members, and we would try to do it at least twice a week. And you'd go through all your members, and you would just write down what their current tech donations were. You would write down the total power of each player. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you can also do troop power. But usually, if your total power is increasing, it is more than likely that your troop power will be increasing as well. So just keep in mind that if you want to do the bare bones amount of work, you just do total power and you do tech donations. And then every 3 days, if you want to keep it simple, you just go through all of your members. And an easy way to do that, and I'll give you an example here. An easy way to do that is you start at the top, right? You start with like the leader, the R5, the R4, and then you work your way down, R3, R2, R1. You write down the total power, because you can see that visually already, right, without having to click on the player profile. After you write that down, right, you can go through and do that for everyone. Then you go back to the top, and then you would click on, as an example here, I'm just going to click on, let me click on my buddy Xanatos here, right, just to give you an example. So here's an example of what you would see when you click on a player profile card. I'm going to post this as well in the voice channel chat. So again, you would use the screenshot I posted before, where it shows you, it was I want to say the 4th or 5th screenshot above, and that'll show you the member list, right? In that, you can see the total power for the players there. Then you would click on a player profile card, and then you would type in the amount of tech donations, because this doesn't reset. Your defeats and your dismantle abilities, those reset every week. But your alliance technology, total troop power, well, I should more specifically say tech and alliance helps, those don't reset, right? Those stay for as long as you are in the alliance. Now, if you leave the alliance and you rejoin, those will reset. But as long as you're there, those will be stagnant, and they'll last forever. So that's the best way I would recommend for players to go about when it comes to how you want to manage or just keeping track of alliance activity. This is what I would strongly recommend doing, because I think it's going to help you out a lot in the long run. Especially if you're looking to try to weed out early inactive players. Honestly, in the beginning, it depends on how deep you really want to go with it. If you want to track stats daily and you want to do it, let's just say every day at reset or every day at a certain time, you could, right? And arguably, if you think about doing that for the first week or two, maybe first week or two, maybe up to 3 weeks, I would say. But somewhere between that first week and third week, I would think that would be okay if you want to do it every day. If you don't want to do it every day, then I would say at least aim for every 2 days. And the reason I say that is because in the beginning is by far the most important when it comes to you as a leader, managing your alliance, because you want to ensure that not only are you getting players in to fill up your cap, but you also want to make sure that you are getting active players that are contributing and supporting your alliance, right, as just as general contributing members. And if you're keeping track of stats and you're doing it more often in the beginning, and again, once you get past that kind of second to third week mark, then you can start scaling it back a little bit. Then you can go to like an every 2 day or an every 3 day stat gathering, or better yet, a player audit that you do, right, for those tech donations, the total power, and of course if you want to do anything more than that. I will say it is demanding, right? It's pretty easy to do it in the beginning when you only have 50, 60, 70, 80 players. Once you start getting to 100 and over that, right, it takes time. I mean, I can tell you, we usually pull stats for like 3 or 4 areas, and if I'm doing that for 120, 130 players, I mean, it could take you like 2 hours just to pull all that information, even if you're going fast. Right, so again, usually what we do is we split it up amongst our officers. So a good example, and again, I'll dive into some of the leader and officer tasks next, but what I will say is that splitting up tasks like these between your officers is going to be really important, or even if you just have members that are in your alliance that are, they're proficient in spreadsheets and they just want to help, which is a simple thing of just pulling data, right, and you're just pulling and plugging, then you can also do that as well. But if you can try and have a few people helping you out with it, so everyone can kind of take turns, trust me when I say it'll also make your mental life a lot easier as far as on workload. Okay, as far as player activity, any questions there that someone has? And again, if you are an existing member, you're more than welcome to raise your hand if you'd like to come on voice. If you are a new member or a visitor, again, we're just not taking any questions on voice, but you're more than welcome to ask your question in the voice channel chat. And I will wait just a minute or so to see if anyone has a specific question in regards to what I just talked about player activity, maintaining player activity, or keeping it, or different ways to go about it. And if you have a question, again, you're more than welcome to write that in voice channel chat. Needed this podcast. I just saw that. It's so funny. I needed this podcast. One of my officers. Yeah, I guess that's the other challenge with when you have public stage channels is you probably get people in. I'm gonna have to let the mods know. Just be on standby next time. I'll definitely do that. Hazavale said out of topic, but can you explain about the farm account you said just now? So just briefly touching on that, that was more in relation to if you have a farm account that's in your alliance, right? Whether that's someone you know that has a farm account in there. Sometimes inactive accounts could also be farm accounts, right? Which doesn't mean they've given up on it. It just means they might not log into it as regularly, right? It still might be required to leave it or to remove that account as well, regardless. But it just shows that there's different types of accounts out there that could be inactive, right? Or different types of players that could be showing up as inactive, whether it's just them becoming inactive generally, maybe whether it's because they've lost interest in the game, or they're just not playing it as much, or maybe they're busy in real life and they just don't have time to log on. Maybe you have a spy that's in your alliance and they're on purposely taking up a spot or a member position, but they're not donating at all, and maybe they're doing it intentionally to slow down your tech development. Or you reaching the next alliance level. This is a strategy that we've seen some people do in other servers. We actually had this done to us. No, I shouldn't say to us, but we had this done in a couple alliances in S8 and S36, which were the two jumper projects that I ran. Where we saw some players doing this as basically a counterplay to slow down alliance tech development. I mean, it's kind of, getting more into like the advanced intricacies of how you can do things like that to manipulate, but again, if you keep track of your data, then it allows for you to avoid that, right? I mean, that would never happen. So, let me see. Leroy said, if a leader goes on break, how should we maintain our alliance? Okay, so good question. I would say, again, if your lead goes on break, and let's just say they have something that comes up, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, if it was me and I was going to go on break for, if it was more than, let's just say, a day, let's say it was 2 days or more, I would pass lead to one of my officers. Now, at the same time, right, I would pass lead to my officers most likely because I trust my officers enough that I can pass lead to them, right? They can take care, if necessary, someone can just handle the alliance or take care. Now, keep in mind, as an officer, right, and I also want to put an asterisk here. It is not necessary. It's not absolutely necessary to transfer lead. But if you know you're going to be offline and you're probably going to get auto-kicked, right? If you just know for whatever reason you have no idea if you're going to be able to log in, then yes, I would say in that situation or even in the other, it would be okay to pass lead to one of your officers, and then whenever you come back, they can pass you it back, right? Now, this is pretty standard, right? In some other kingdom builders, where you'll basically do R5 or R6 rotations. So you'll pass lead to someone. Again, I've seen alliances that have two people that run the alliance, and they just pass lead back and forth to each other every other day. Or if you have a lead that's on one 12-hour window and then another lead that's on the other 12-hour window, so you have 24/7 coverage, that's another reason you might have someone pass lead to another, or you'll do just a standard lead rotation, whether it's with 2 or 3 people. I've seen alliances that do 3 lead rotations. So again, it's okay to pass lead, but again, make sure that whoever you're passing to, right, you're passing to someone that's trusted. Otherwise, even if you don't pass lead, and let's say your lead can log in once a day just to avoid becoming inactive and getting dropped, then your officers can still manage the alliance. I would say it is a little subjective because it depends on what's happening in your server. As an example, let's just say you're in a peaceful server where there's no war going on. Usually, I would say kind of typical tasks that you're going to do, and this is, I guess, somewhat of a nice transition as well into our next topic, which is going to be, right, officer and kind of leader tasks and responsibilities. So, and just so I can keep up here. with, let me just do this. I'm going to do a little notepad just so I don't lose my outline, and I'm always having to go and find it somewhere. Great, here we go. Okay. I feel a lot better now. All right, so covering, so again, let me just kind of easy segue into the next one. So when you go in and you are, and you're going in for just general leader and officer tests, let me start off with leader, then we'll go to officer, and we'll kind of touch on this all in kind of one encompassing point. So as a lead, right, and I did briefly touch on this a little bit earlier, but as a leader of an alliance, some of your tasks and responsibilities may include up to, but not all, where you're going to be having to assign officers, right? You're going to have to pick officers, right? And if you've never, and keep in mind, this is where it starts getting a little tricky. If you're a leader of an alliance, but you've never been an officer before, you might find it somewhat challenging, or even if you're on the receiving end and you're someone who's interested in being an officer, where you might find some challenges and difficulties in navigating becoming an officer, or even just having somewhat expectations of your lead, because if they've never been an officer before, or if they've never ran an alliance before, where they've actually selected officers and have actually gone through somewhat of a process, whether or not they have taken time to interview players that want to be an officer. And pretty simple, I mean, if you want to just do a very light process, you can send a mail out asking for people that are interested in being officers, right, and see if anyone responds that way. Or as a lead, you can just create the alliance. You're the lead, no officers yet. Wait to see who's consistent. Sometimes it is good to be patient, right? You don't necessarily, especially if you don't know anyone, right? So let's really just bare bones it and talk about it from like a from scratch perspective. Let's say you make your alliance. You don't know any of these people that are coming in, right? You do not just want to immediately promote people to officer. You want to see who is socially active in your alliance. You want to see who's helping, who's answering questions, who is demonstrating some form of good representation for your alliance, most likely in alliance chat, right? Who is being proactive or taking initiative to ask you about, hey, can I help out here? Or, hey, do you need someone to write a mail up? Or, hey, do you need someone to put up markers at a certain time? Right? Wait to see who reaches out to you and asks you these questions. Wait to see who is actually socially active and engaging in alliance chat. And then also, if they're being helpful in answering questions. These are good indicators that these are people that you could approach if they do not approach you about seeing if they're interested in an officer position. Now, as a lead, you are looking, right? Part of your job is to try and identify good officer talent so that way you can promote. You're also, again, as we talked about in the beginning, going to be looking to writing up alliance mails, right? So again, as a lead, some of your tasks and responsibilities are going to be to write up alliance mails, to set markers, to update your calendar, to monitor player activity, right? And again, typically via the spreadsheet. You're going to be looking to assign officers, or basically select officers, and then if you want to assign them individual tasks along with joint tasks as well. As an example, everyone should be doing markers. It's pretty simple to do, right, in game, so every officer should be able to do that. Some officers might enjoy writing mails more than others. Maybe some officers want to update the calendar, even though you could make the argument that everyone can still do the calendar as well. All officers should be knowing what your next tech paths are going to be, right? So as a lead, you should be telling your officers what your tech paths should be as well. And this is just something that you should be informing them. Typically, you would want to set up, and we'll talk about this later, but you would want to set up an alliance group chat, right? This is, alliance group chats are fantastic. I hope they expand it as well later, but you can set up an alliance group chat for your officer team, right? And you only add your officers there, and that way you can let them know, right? These are the types of markers we'd like to set, right? Because this is the current situation in the server and with our alliance, right? These are how we would set up calendars. You can give examples of that. Here's our tech path, so that way you have the next 5 or the next 3 to 5 techs already listed and laid out. So that way, when you finish one, your officers or whoever's online, right? It puts more eyes on tech. So that way, you're able to assign a new recommended tech that much sooner. Again, laying out what that game plan is for your officers so those people are informed. Right, these are some of the things that you're going to do as a leader, and again, it's also going to be your responsibility to address any kind of drama that happens in your alliance. If you see people that are getting out of line, or if they are, being, either just verbally on the fence, or anything that would be borderline inappropriate, right? It would also be your obligation to hopefully reach out to those people individually and address those things. If someone's not following the rules, you would reach out and address those things, right? You would want to explain to your officers how they should go about doing that as well. Because you want to, the most important thing with you, between the relationship of a leader and an officer, is that everyone has to be on the same page. Processes have to be explained. And you do not want to leave it up to an assumption or God, what's the plural version of assumption? I was going to say assumptuous, but it's probably not. You just don't want to leave it up for an assumption to be made or a interpretation by your officer because you didn't take the time to explain how you want to do things. Trust me, this will save you so much headache in the future. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that a player in your alliance breaks a rule. Like, let's say you tell your players they can't go out and attack tagless players, as an example. And someone does go out and they attack a couple tagless players. You check the audit log. You can see they went out and attacked a tagless player, right? Now let's say your officer, because you're offline, and one of your officers is online, and let's say they just kicked that player because they broke the rules, right? But they didn't, but keep in mind, but then maybe you have another officer, and then let's say this happens again. Let's say it happens the next day, and another officer sees it. Let's say that officer reaches out to that player and starts being verbally aggressive with them in game, saying, why the bleep, bleep, bleep are you doing this? Right? Why can't you read the rules? Four eyes, get it together. Right? But then, let's say it happens again the next day, and another officer, a different one from the first two, takes it, and let's say they start blasting this person out in Alliance chat publicly and calling them out for attacking and breaking the rules. The point is that you cannot assume what someone else will do. You cannot assume the amount of knowledge and experience another player has, but the one thing that you can do as a lead that is somewhat in your control is to get everyone on the same page by taking time to explain what the process should be for how we would go about handling certain types of situations. That way, your officers can hopefully deal with or handle those situations in an appropriate way, where everyone is going to do the same thing across the board anytime these situations come up. And that is something I would say is probably the next biggest important thing as a lead, is when it comes to those types of processes, it's good to explain those things to officers and even to members, because sometimes you'll have members that are proactive, or I shouldn't even say proactive, you'll have some members that just take it upon themselves to police. And it's good to send a mail out at some point in time, letting people know here's like the chain of command. Here's like the communication hierarchy or path that it should follow. If you see something happening, right, you can tell your members, right, be nice, right, give them a friendly reminder, right. You don't have to be mean about it, because that's not going to do anything for anyone except make people leave or stop playing. So you let your members know, right, if it's something serious and if it falls under a couple things, inform an officer. Let an officer know. If an officer isn't online, message the lead, right? If it's you just sending a friendly reminder as a player in a nice way, that's okay. But if it's anything more than that, it should follow a typical communication chain that starts with you as a member informing an officer, and you can reach out to any of the officers, right, or any that you see online, or you just message, or if you don't see any officers online, message all the officers, right, and then you can message a lead, right? So if there's no officers online and your lead's not online, then you message everyone, right? Otherwise, go in order of the first officer you see online, message them, and then, of course, if none of them are online but the lead is, then lead, right? And you kind of would want to go in that order of online, offline, and then everyone that's in an R5 or an R6 position. And this is really, I'll be honest, this is probably my second biggest pro tip, because I cannot tell you how many times I see this happen in alliances, that they just, like, literally it's unnecessary drama that gets started for no reason at all whatsoever when it could have been completely avoided. And it's something that I at least hope could be good. I could spot talent. Hey! Psychology is other way. Well, and when global chat goes bad. Yeah, I know. That's intense stuff. Anyways, those are some things that you would focus on when it comes to what the leadership expectations are. Now let me briefly touch on officer expectations, which is going to go to answering the previous question kind of all the way home. So, as an officer, the biggest piece of advice I could give you as an officer is and I want to say it one way, but I feel like it's going to come off somewhat aggressive. Let me just preface this by saying this is not in an aggressive way, but as an officer, and really this is across the board, right? I really think that depending on the position you have, it's important that you know what you should and what you should not be doing. More or less, stay in your lane. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to dive into specifics, is that as an officer, right, you should not be someone who's making a call for the alliance, right? You are a representative of the alliance. You are not the leader of an alliance, right? You are a representative of the alliance. You are someone who is supporting the alliance and supporting the direction and the goals of what that alliance stands for and where it's going, which means that you as an officer should not be going out and saying, you know, again, unless otherwise stated by the lead or stated in an alliance mail or stated in your notice board, your notice announcement board internally, right? You should not be going out and making statements or facts on what your stance is as an alliance, or again, basically just being the lead, right? It's knowing what your role is as a supporting player, right? As an officer, you are someone who is socially active. You are active in general. You're being helpful in alliance chat, whether that's just engaging in social commentary or social conversations. You're also hopefully answering questions, right? You are a frontline communicator. You are an extension of the leader that is able, that your officer team is just able to multitask and handle a lot of these things. So that way the lead can focus on doing more of the overall management and more of the overseeing of the alliance, right, by having officers help out. Again, that can be in situations like we talked about before, whether that is being socially active, answering questions, if that is updating markers, or modifying them or canceling anything in between, right? If you have some officers that maybe want to help sending alliance mails out, if you have officers that are going to help out with the calendar updates, if you're able to have officers that are helping out with updating stats on your spreadsheet as well, then again, right, these are all things that you as an officer would be doing. And again, I can't stress it enough, right? It's just really important, because the thing I'll tell you that I've seen a lot of times is the big overarching thing that everyone wants to be alpha, right? And this really kind of goes even beyond just as officers, right? Sometimes you'll have officers that have been leaders in other alliances, and they, for whatever reason, just have a difficult time sticking to what an officer should do. Or let's say you have a player that has been an officer in other alliances, and they're just a real go-getter, right? And maybe you as a leader, you may not have that much experience in leading, and your officer is just doing a lot more, right? And maybe they're just doing a lot more, still within their officer lane and their officer position, but you just don't know how to handle it or how to manage it, when really it's a good thing for you to see, right? I mean, again, there's so many kind of in and outs that can happen when you're not taking time to kind of establish what, I don't want to say ground rules are, but just what the officer expectations are in your alliance, right? It's really important that you set some ground rules and you set some processes and you take time to explain what your vision is as a leader. Because again, you may find out that some officers don't want to be a part of your alliance because they just don't agree with your vision. That's okay. There's an alliance out there for everyone, right? This is something I preach and talk about a lot. It is not a bad thing. Now, yeah, maybe if you're just someone who wants to go out there and watch the world burn, and your alliance is just going to go out and do PvP all the time, okay, yeah, you may not get necessarily as much support as maybe an alliance who wants to be, more development-based within the server, right? So there's also different types of approaches that leaders will have going in, right? Not every lead is going to have the same approach. Not every lead is going to have the same goals. Not every leader is going to have the same amount of knowledge and experience that maybe you might, as a player or an officer, expect that leader to have, right? So these are all realistic expectations to have when you're going in as a lead, and then again, as an officer looking to take on that role in that position within an alliance. All right. Whew, man, that was really intense. Okay, let me look at some questions now, because I did see some questions that were asked. And again, if you have a question here, on when it comes to as leader tasks and responsibilities or officer tasks and responsibilities, or anything related to that in between, please feel free to ask that question in the voice channel chat. I would imagine I'll probably get more questions on this topic than maybe some of the other ones. And also, if you want to raise your hand, again, if you are an existing member with roles, not a new member or visitor, you're more than welcome to, and we'll call on you. Otherwise, I will go to the voice channel chat. And let me just go through here some questions, because I know we got a couple here as I was talking on this topic. So Sleepy said, how would you keep an eye out for spies, monitoring the activities the main way? I would say so, Sleepy. I mean, this is the thing, right? You may get some spies in an alliance that are playing, whether they're using that as their main account, or they're doing it on a second account. Right, in S36 and even in S8, and even my buddy Shadow can tell you the same thing. And actually, well, let me see. Shadow, are you still here? I don't know if Shadow's still here. He's not typing. Let me see. I don't know. Okay, you did. Okay. Yeah. Did you want to? I don't know. Are you in a position to talk? I'm not. I'm trying not to click on my DMs right now because I'm recording my screen. So, for the show, but. If you're, I don't know if you wanted to come on and just talk a little bit about spies, because I know you also have some good experience with this as well. But if you're not able to, that's okay. But if you are able to, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll briefly touch a little bit on it. So when it comes to spying in general, right, you can still get, as I was mentioning before, you can have players that will join with your main account, with their main account, or they may join with a second account that they still actively play. Now, if they do it either way, right, keep in mind it's still taking away, right, keep in mind, when you spy, right, obviously it's better to do it with a second account. I'm not sitting here saying promoting spying at all, even though the way I just worded that might be indifferent to the main point. But the big thing here is that, right, if you're gonna, as far as weeding out spies, activity is going to be the main thing, right? You're going to look, I mean, really, this is where you would want to look at tech donations. You also want to look at helps. Usually, red flags, or if they have low or zero tech donations, and zero helps. Zero helps is probably the biggest one, really, because it's easy for, especially if they're using an alt account or a secondary account, it's a lot easier for them to spy with. It's a lot easier to see a potential spy with zero helps because they're more than likely just logging on to do donations, right? Helps, you have to actually be on for a long period of time and constantly hit the help button. Most players that may spy on other alliances would not prioritize being online for a long period of time and hitting helps. Maybe like the real, like the 0.000000001% of players that are really trying to fully integrate themselves, yeah. But that's why we talked about earlier, when you're keeping stats on players, for the most part, just doing donations and total troop or total power is good. Now, if you want to extend that to helps, if you want to extend that to troop power, you can. I would say if you go in an order of extending it, you would want to start with tech donations, total power, helps, and then troop power. That's how you would want to kind of extend what you're going to collect or gather stats for, or I should say audit player stats for. Again, keep in mind, even if a spy is in your alliance, and as long as they're still donating, they're still helping, right? Again, donating to tech is by far the most important thing, right? You can also keep track of people that show up to sieges, right? But also keep in mind that depending on the time you do a siege, other people might be offline, right? You can message people and ask them, as an example, what's your siege time? This is another pro tip that I'll probably dive into a little bit later. But you can message every player in your alliance individually doing the DM route that we talked about before, and you ask people, hey, what is your, on a typical average day, right, or across the 7-day period, right, what is your availability in UTC time? And you usually want to go off of UTC time because that's the in-game time. So if you're in-game right now and you look in the top right-hand corner right below your green gems, you'll see that there's a time there, right? That's a universal, universal time clock is what it stands for, or something like that, right? So you want to go off of UTC time. So it's really important that you ask players what time they are available for sieges, because then you can put that information on a sheet and you can pick suitable times to do city sieges. This is extremely important. Oh, God, and I wish I would have saved that for another topic, but I'll arguably dive into that a little bit later. So anyways, outside of that little tidbit pro tip right there out of nowhere, again, keep in mind you want to just monitor tech. If players are not donating again, or if they have very low helps, these are immediate red flag indicators. One, that players are inactive, and maybe they could be spies. But there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to do it. Now, if you want to plant seeds, for example, and you want to provide misinformation posts or announcements to see who could be a spy, you could do things like that, where you send kind of a false report out somewhere, you monitor the area, and you see what alliances respond, right? Or if you're noticing there's a trend of you posting information and another alliance counter-sieging you, that could be another indication, right? If they counter-siege you at a time where right before you get the wall down or right after you get the wall down, that could be another indication that maybe you might have a spy. It also could just be the fact that maybe, it also depends how many people show up, right? There's a lot of situations that could happen in game that I could like sit here and list off 20 potential scenarios that could happen that would all be red flags that could indicate you might have a spy in your alliance. I'll probably touch on that in maybe another video or another topic for another week. It's just I could really dive deep into that. So anyways, I'll just focus on those things for how you would go about utilizing spreadsheet and collecting player data and auditing for how you could go about potentially weeding out spies. Yes. Shadow said 100% on the long list of red flags. Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, we could probably do a whole session on all the counterintelligence and spy red flags that you could have in your alliance. Okay, sorry. Let me go to the next question here because I know there's still a few more before we move on to the next topic. Again, we are going to talk about the alliance tech path. That's going to be next. So if you're still here, again, that's going to be a really good one. We'll talk about what alliance techs you want to do in order. So let me answer just a few more questions here. I answered farm account. Ben Parle said, "Pass me, king." Let's see here. All right, let's scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so let's see. Edgefe asked, "How many officers should you have?" I mean, to be honest, if you can have up to 6, you want to get 6, right? I mean, the more officers, the better. Just because it's more people that can help out with splitting up workload on tasks. Now, let's say you want to take it a step further. Let's say you have more than 6 people that are wanting to contribute. You could then set up like a day and a night officer team. So let's say you have an officer team that's on for 8 or 12 hours, or even if that's consistently, or if it's sporadically on and off. You could have an officer team set up for a 12-hour shift, and then you have another set of 4 officers that are going to be online during the next 12 hours, right? This would allow for you to have more of a 24/7 coverage for your time zones, right? That could be a way that you go about doing it as well. Now, whether or not you work in a secondary lead that kind of takes the night shift while you take a day shift or vice versa, right, you could do that too. Otherwise, you could just promote, maybe you promote 3 officers or something like that, right? You switch out or you substitute 3 officers before you go to bed, because these 3 officers, when they come online, or if they're already online, right, are going to be able to cover the offline time for you and maybe for other officers. That could be a good way to go about doing that. But as far as how many officers, I would say, yeah, you definitely want 6, especially if you're able. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to promote these people right away. Right, you still want to follow the same similar guidelines of if you don't know anyone in the alliance and you don't have any previous history or experience with other people being an officer, right, then you want to take time to vet players before you promote them. But you do want to try and get to 6, regardless of how long it may take. Let me see. Sleepy asked. Okay, Sleepy said this is a 2-part question. Thank you so much for that. How do you deal with officers who seemed good to begin with and then went less active, or take a more vigilant position, or slightly aggressive route that you do not want? Good question, Sleepy. This is very standard. This happens more often than not. What I would say is that this is why it's important. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. This is why it's extremely important to set the expectations early, right? Set those processes early and what your goals are for as the leader of the alliance. Keep in mind, out of sight, out of mind. People don't know what they don't know, right? That's why it's good to take time to inform not only your officers, but also your players on what the direction is of your alliance. Where do you want to go in the server with your alliance? And that's why it's good to take time to do that early. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, you're kind of already in that situation, so what steps could you take at this point? I would just say, again, you have a conversation with the officer, preferably via DMs or on Discord. Again, I'm a big fan of getting into voice calls as a lead myself, so I always ask if my officers or members are willing to do a voice call first, because I think that when you get into a voice call with someone, it can be a lot... I don't want to say better, but because that's just a lack of better words. Oh gosh, I just punned myself, dear Lord, or double redundancy myself. I would just say that it is a more efficient way. And I think when it comes to you connecting and engaging with someone, it's a lot easier to have that type of a conversation in voice. If you can, again, not everyone can, but if you can, that is my preference, is I like to try and have a voice call with someone, because I think when you can hear my tone and you can listen to the way that I talk, I think it's a lot easier for things to come across in a more understood way, instead of if you're typing something and you have to be pretty careful about how you go about wording something when it comes to how that could be perceived by the other person. But in short, I would have a one-on-one conversation with the officer, and I would say, look, these are what our alliance goals are. This is the direction that our alliance is going in, right? I've been noticing a consistent trend of, you either, being verbally aggressive, or you're saying contradictory things that are not in line with what our alliance goals are, or maybe they've broken rules. And I would just say, look, I'm going to go ahead and demote you, but I still, and then whether or not you want to give that person an opportunity to earn their officer position back, you can. Usually my recommendation is that if you're going to demote someone, I would recommend leaving them in that position for however long it takes. And I would say, look, if you still are interested in being an officer again, then you can show that to me in Alliance chat. Be supportive, be helpful, be a contributing member. And then if they're doing that for, I would say, a week or two at minimum, and they're not complaining to you at all, or and they're truly going to do that, which in honesty, it's probably going to be very few that will do that. But if they do that, then yeah, you can give them an opportunity to earn an officer position back. If they don't, that's okay. If anything, you just dodged a bullet and you got out of the situation earlier than later. So, right? And then again, if it de-escalates more from there, then you can remove them from the alliance, right? Keep in mind, every person might take getting demoted differently, but it doesn't mean that you still can't handle the situation with, some nice TLC, right? And doing it in a professional way as a lead. So yeah, I would say, again, you re-explain everything to them, and then demote them. And then, again, it's up to you if you want to give them a shot at earning back officer. And then, if they, like I said, if they keep escalating, then you remove them. Pretty simple. How would you deal with an unsatisfactory officer? First, how would you discipline them? And then second part is, how would you demote them without losing them as a member friend? Note, I know there is no ideal way, but how do you think? Okay, I feel like I probably just answered both parts of the question there. But if I didn't, and there's something else or another part, please feel free to ask. I'm just going to scroll down, and then I'll get to that. Edgeface asks, would it be good to hand over the leader to a trusted officer while you sleep, and what could you do before you go to sleep to make sure they are doing their job correctly? A good question. Really good question. So what I would say is that, again, if it's a trusted officer and you want to hand over lead before you go to sleep, sure, you can. I think in this situation, right, the only thing that a leader can do, right, and this is, let me explain this as well so I can show you as an example. So, God, there's a lot here. So, okay, if you look at what is the difference between an R6 and an R5, there's actually only a couple. So here, and I'm going to send you a screenshot because this will help. I'm going to post this in voice channel chat. It's good to have an understanding of what the actual differences are between what an R5 and what an R6 can do within the Alliance. I just posted a screenshot here in voice channel chat. So if you look at that screenshot, you'll see that there's only a few, right? Creating an Alliance group chat, right? Or disbanding an Alliance group chat. Only a lead can do that. Edit alliance settings. So as an example, if you want to edit the setting of your alliance is open to invite only a lead can do that. If you want to form or cancel a league, what this means is if you want to form or cancel a diplomacy relationship, only a leader can do that. If you want to mark or unmark an enemy alliance, right? So if you want to classify an alliance as an enemy alliance, right, which will also give them a special visual aid or marker on them when you're looking at them on the map. If you want to transfer alliance leadership, pretty standard, obviously on the R6. If you want to dissolve an alliance, okay? So the meaningful things here is really just creating a group chat, or modifying, editing, creating a group chat, right? Establishing a, if you want to form an alliance relationship, if you want to put something as an, if you want to put someone as an enemy, right? Then you can do that as well. And then obviously the settings. These things, I mean, I would say out of all of these things, the only one that you might do a little more often than the others is probably the editing of alliance settings, right? If you want to go from open alliance to invite only. For the most part, none of these really require you to be doing, in my opinion, a hard lead rotation. Right, because most of the time you're going to already have group chats set up beforehand. And we'll talk about that later as well, as some group chats, some ideas on group chats or types of group chats that you could set up. I did make a video on this as well. Edit alliance settings, right? That's not really going to be that pertinent unless you're going to be offline. I will say there's an asterisk here. If you're going to be offline when your big family upgrade finishes, and you want to open the alliance to do like an invite all, because I don't know if officers can do invite alls. I don't think they can. It might only be the lead. Let me see. Let me scroll up. Maybe I could be wrong there. Let me double check. If you can invite members. Okay, no, my bad. So officers can invite members as well. So yeah, you're fine there. So again, and in that case, like I said, if you really want to transfer leads, you can. Otherwise, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. What I would say, though, is that if you have someone that you're going to transfer lead with that is going to be able to manage kind of that day and night team, then yes, I do think there could be some benefit there. But I would also say that that might only be the case if you're in like a war server, right? Or if you're in a server that's doing a lot of PvP. If you're in a peaceful development-based server, you may not need to. Again, if you want to kind of build that trust and find other people that you're able to form a good relationship with as other co-leads, sure. If you want to work on that as well in preparation of when something like SVS server comes out, so you can get your alliance used to seeing the lead rotation, sure, you could do that as well. Also, keep in mind, doing more lead rotations is also going to be flooding your alliance notification inbox, right, which could also push things like your mails down. Just a side small tangent note there. But I hope that at least helps answer the question. Let me see here. Sleepy said, I missed the part about Alliance Tech Party. Yeah, we're going to do that next. Yeah, oh yeah, sure, of course. Let me see here. Okay, cool. Awesome. So let me go to the next thing that we're going to talk about then, which is Alliance Tech Pathing. Right? This is the next really big important thing. What is the ideal tech path that you want to follow as an alliance lead? I mean, this is probably one of the other most important things that if you are looking to lead an alliance, you probably are going to want to tune in for this one. So let's start again. Now, I'll give everyone a minute or so, or about 30 seconds here. If you're in game and you want to follow along with this, I would say just open up an alliance tab if you're in alliance, or if you just want to join an alliance. Keep in mind this is being recorded as well. But after you click on alliance and you go technology, the path that you want to follow when you are starting a new alliance, and I'm only going to really give you guys about 6 or 8, so to speak, just to start. Now, you obviously want to go big family, right? So you're going to go on the general. There's 2 tabs, general and territory. The top one being general. You want to obviously start focusing on big family. And okay. So, excuse me. So you want to go with big family first, and then you'll go brothers in arms. Big family is going to be for you to increase your member limit or your player capacity. Brothers in Arms is going to be to reduce the amount of time that goes towards buildings and research upgrades for the amount of helps, or per the amount of helps that you're getting. Right? Keep in mind the amount of helps you get are based on your castle level. And then from there, at level 1, I think you're going to have to do. I think you're going to have to put a couple into Rapid March before you hit level 2. And then once you hit level 2, you're gonna want to. So you're not gonna want to do Rapid March, or I mean, most likely you'll probably rather do Rapid March than you would do Fast Garrison. But you'll only do a little bit. You only want to do enough until you hit level 2. After that, you go right back to doing Big Family. Then you go Brothers in Arms, and then eventually you want to focus on. So keep in mind, Big Family, Brothers in Arms are the main focus. Then you want to do the Gathering, right? And you'll do the food. This will be for level 3. You'll do the Gathering, but you want to go in order of Iron, Stone, Wood, and Food. So you go backwards from down up. Then you're also going to want to do the Taxing, right? So once you hit Alliance level 3, you can do the taxes. This is going to be additional resources that you'll get from cities that you control that are producing a resource. Same thing. You go in order of Iron, Stone, Wood, Food. You go bottom up. And then once you get to, let's just say, Alliance level 4, you can do loads, right? So load is the next thing you're going to focus on the 4 level, and this is just going to be the amount of resources that your troops can carry. Same thing. In this direction, you're going to want to go Bowman first. The reason why is because everyone has Bowman. And then you'll probably want to go Cav. The reason I say Cav is because the majority of players are probably going to start off with a Water March, and most of the time they're going to run into the double Cav situation as well when you're running Bryn and Lancey Poo, or Luscious Lance, on your front line, right, until you end up replacing, depending on if you're spending. Again, this is just approaching it from a free-to-play perspective. Okay. Uh-oh, am I back? I'm back. Awesome, cool. Sorry, had to tend to my little lady there for a sec. Okay, so where we left off? We left off at Alliance level 4. So Bowman, right? You go Bowman, Cav, Spearman, Shieldman. Last two don't really have to be in any particular order, but again, that's where you would go with Alliance level 4. Then, when you're looking at Alliance level 4 for territory, don't really need to do anything here. At this point, you should most likely be able to boost with loads to Alliance level 5. And then once you get to Alliance level 5, you want to go in order of AP recovery and then SP recovery. Coincidentally, on level 5 for territory, you most likely don't want... And let me preface as well. When you hit a new Alliance level, you want to go right back in the same exact order, right? So you'll go Big Family, Brothers in Arms, and then you'll go AP, SP recovery, right? Once you go into level 6, right? There are certain ones that you're going to prioritize over others, right? And typically it's going to be Big Family, Brothers in Arms, AP, SP recovery. Then you're going to do the Gathering speed and then load, right? Those are going to be, I would say that gives you about 12 techs right there. Those are the ones for the most part you really want to focus in order. As far as when you're looking at the techs that you want to specifically upgrade there. Again, general definitely just has a lot more value, but usually those 12 are the most important ones for the most part, and then after that you can kind of focus how you want. That's basically just the starting order. Once you start getting to level 7, 8, and 9, these are all just going to be stat based for general. Then you want to start transitioning to territory. Territory is actually going to be a little bit better for you overall, focusing on that. Especially when you get to Alliance level 6 and you can do decreed cooldown and duration, right? This is going to increase the amount of orders that you can issue if you're someone who owns a capital city. And then also, eventually, once you get King, I don't know if this actually applies to King as well or not. I do know it applies to capitals. I'll have to ask on the other one. But those are things you want to do. And then, of course, if you end up doing, if you do like, I think once you get to Alliance level 8, so for example, if you do, and I want to say this applies, so like home turf and minimize losses, I have to confirm with this, but based on how it's worded, where minimize losses is a proportion of seriously wounded when fighting within your alliance territory, I would imagine this would apply for PvE as well on gnomes, and then also for home turf, where it increases the damage dealt when fighting in your alliance territory. Now, unless this is specifically PvP oriented, which I would have to ask, If it does apply for PvE, which I would imagine it does because it just doesn't specify, right, then these would be kind of the 2 next techs at level 8 you would then want to try and focus, because it's just going to allow for you to increase the level of gnomes and bosses that you can do more damage, and then also taking less losses, which is just going to be a big saver at the end. So that's kind of the general tech path I would recommend following, which I think that kind of gives you at least the 12 that you want to immediately focus on, and then extending that to 14 once you hit Alliance level 8. Does anyone have any questions on Alliance tech path? And if you do, you can write that out in voice channel chat. Otherwise, if you want to raise your hand... Oh, okay, here. I think we have someone here who did. You're new. You're new. Okay, we have an existing Lord. I just don't know your name, though. But sure, I will go ahead and invite you if you want to come on and ask a question. It's not too often that we get members with roles wanting to ask. Okay, no one's there. I will just refresh. Let me go back to voice channel then and see if anyone has a question there in regards to the Alliance Tech Path topic. Edge of Fate, I would say what Shadow said is pretty much more or less pretty standard. An example of that, to kind of add on to what Shadow was saying further, is we do for our servers, right? We do, and this is even for projects I've ran in the past and other Kingdom Builders, right? We would do town halls weekly, which are for all the players in the server, not just for players that were in our group or for anyone that wanted to attend those. Then we would also do council meetings, which is a meeting of leads, and then we would do officer meetings, which is a meeting of all officers. And that you can do a variation of those. You can do those just amongst your groups or your family of alliances, or you can do that with everyone that's in the server. Right, doing those I think are really good because it allows for officers to kind of you can have it be in a little bit more of a informal setting as well, where you just you really focus on hearing from the officers, right? What are their concerns? What are their questions, right? And then you can kind of address those one by one, or even just kind of have an open floor talk. And then more or less kind of a similar approach with when you're doing council meetings, right? For leads. But again, those are good ways on top of everything that Shadow said, which are excellent points as well. Cool, so that talks about the Alliance Tech Path. I don't know, again, if anyone has any questions on that, I'll wait to see if someone does. Otherwise, we will move on. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Alliance group chats and how you can utilize Alliance group chats in a very efficient and effective way. I did do a video on this, and let me see if I can, let me see, group chat. I think I did. Cool, yeah. I did this on May 13th. This was last month? Yeah. So this is like a short video on how to use Alliance group chats along with topic ideas, right? Or group chat topic ideas. So I'm just going to give a few examples here. But a good way to utilize Alliance group chats would be, as an example, some ideas on group chats that you can make would be ones as, like, let's say you want to make a redeem code. So you want to you create an Alliance group chat, you add everyone in the Alliance to it. Because keep in mind, you can add anyone in the Alliance. You can add anyone, or you can add everyone to the group chat. And then you can also apply a mod or someone specific that you want to use as another admin in there to help add or remove players. So again, some examples of good Alliance group chats I would say would be a redeem code one. So you can post redeem codes. Now keep in mind, when you make an Alliance group chat, it also shows up as a green notification bubble in-game, right? So it's more identifiable to players in your Alliance than if they're just going in and looking at the Alliance chat, right? Because I think all those show up as red along with World Chat and Kingdom Chat. And then I think just for those three. So again, having a redeem code Alliance group chat, having a Ruins Chords group chat where people can post Ruins coordinates. If you are, let's say you have rogue players or alliances in your server, you can have a PvP chord group chat set up where you have players in your alliances that are just doing nothing but going around the map and looking for players that are rogue or breaking rules, and they just post their cords all day long. And it just makes it easier for members in your alliance to find them if they want to go and attack. You can have a PvP tips alliance group chat where you just talk about nothing but PvP tips, good advice, best practices, right? And it allows for you to filter out those types of conversations in your alliance chat, so that way you can have more focused conversations and discussions with members in your alliance. Right? These are just some examples and ideas on how, and there's more that I provide in the video, but these are just some that you can do and you can set up, and it'll help you out, along with an officer group chat, right, which is just for your officers. You can set up a group chat for players that have a troop power over the garrison power for an upcoming city that you want to attack, just so you can coordinate with them a little bit more, right? These are really good examples of how you can go about utilizing what I still think is a great feature, even though I would love for them to expand it past just being able to do it with your alliance, but you can do it with any player in the game, right? And that might focus on needing to have like a friends list type system set up, which would be nice to see as well. Ooh, someone pinged me again here. All right. Let me see. Edgeface says, does anyone have any questions on Alliance group chats? If you do, please feel free to post those in voice channel chat. Otherwise, I'll just read off of some of the questions. Edgeface asked, Shadow, yes, but in what way would you speak to them in order to get officers to enjoy being an officer for you? I'll be honest, that's really, like, in my opinion, I want to say a pretty subjective question, just because, you know, there's just no way of knowing how an officer is going to react, right? Now, there are ways that you can put, I think, the way that you word your tone in a more delicate way, but you still have to get the point across, right, which is that, where they would enjoy being an officer for you. I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, I think if an officer really enjoys their time being in that position within your alliance, it's more or less because they agree with the way that you are going about leading. They agree with the direction that you want to go in as a lead. And then it's just a matter of, right, it's more of initially selling them on wanting to support what you are building as a lead because they agree with it. And if they don't agree with it, they probably shouldn't be there. Right, but because you're starting off on the right foot, that will at least increase the opportunity for you to have opportunities to engage. Whether that is engaging with them in direct messages in game, whether that's them coming on to Discord and joining officer voice call meetings, or even if you just want to reach out to them individually and say, hey, I'd love to chat with you, one day just to check in. Right, you can do that with your officers as well. But keep in mind, they will be more susceptible or more likely to do that, right, if they agree with what the direction of your alliance is going in, and then also with you as a leader, for how you're supporting and what you're doing for the alliance. But for the most part, it's really, just, the thing is, I wouldn't overthink it too much, right? It's not like it's the end of the world if you're not voice calling with your officers every day. Now, if you have an alliance Discord set up and you just build that over time, right, then yeah. Shadow would probably tell you that he has, sometimes he'll have daily or every other day just voice calls, right? And some of them might be in an official officer meeting capacity or an unofficial officer meeting capacity, right, with officers from alliances or from a family of alliances that he has and other games that he plays, right? And those things just kind of will organically and naturally happen. But it also helps when you set up things like town hall meetings or you do officer meetings, right? Because then people will have a chance to hear not only your voice, but they'll have a chance to hopefully get to know you a little bit more. And that also can help in players being more willing to have those conversations, or for you to, be able to have an opportunity to start working and building those relationships as well. In my opinion, I wouldn't really force anything. Again, if you truly care about leading the alliance and you care about doing things doing things to the best of your ability, that will show. But you also have to put some work in too. And part of it is also about earning the respect of your officers, and even to a certain point, your members in your alliance. But doing those things, giving opportunities via those kind of weekly meetings that you set up, or finding out what's a good time for all your officers to meet together, and then doing that as well. Because then you might be able to do specific officer voice meetings, right? Those would be good opportunities as well. All right, what do we talk about? What else do we have here? Tick track, activity. Okay, let's talk about, so there's our last two topics are going to be on sending quality mails, or what types of alliance mails would you send. And then we're also going to talk about assigning ranks and positions. And then we may briefly talk about city sieging as an alliance as well. But the next two topics are going to be the ones we're going to focus on, just because I'm at an hour and a half right now. And I'm going to have to shorten this up because I have my town hall for our for our meeting on my server in like 10 minutes. So let me power through these last two topics real quick. So again, let me minimize this. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about sending quality mails. The types of mails I would really recommend you sending for your alliance would be things that you would be giving kind of best practices or tips on. So how are you going to, how to level your account? What kind of character team composition pairings would you do? Sending alliance mails out on any kind of, as I said, general tips, best practices that you would use or apply in-game for leveling and progressing your account, for attacking barbarians, for doing PvE-related tasks, how to do your daily achievements, recommendation on Academy Tech Path, recommendation on Building Tech Path. These are all really important things to do. And then I would say next would be go off of your calendar. This is one of the best things I would recommend for alliance leads or even officers to do. Go off of the calendar that you can see in the top right-hand corner. If you click the calendar folding page that has the two wires on it, you can look at what events are coming up, right? You can click on those events and get a brief description, or wait until the day the event is released and get a little bit more of a detailed description. Then write up mails. Just start building an archive. Write up mails for events, right? The event that's going on now, how long it lasts, give a brief description of the event, and then give tips and best practices for that event. If you do this from day one, you will start building up an archive of mails that you can then later on either fine-tune, update, but then you'll have them saved so you can pull from those templates to do quick copy-paste. This is going to save you so much time management. Trust me, it is a godsend. But yes, I would say you need to send out event mails, because this is really going to give your players, this is going to be another form, a level of engagement that you can bring your players into. The next thing I'll say, then the next topic I'm going to touch on is assigning ranks and player positions, right? How can you be efficient and utilize doing player ranks from R5 or R4 to R1, right? What kind of rank positions, or how would you indicate what an R4, an R3, an R2, and R1 could be? I will give you a brief example of how we do it in our alliance. So the R1 position is used for anyone that is silent or present. So if you are silent or present status, you immediately get R1, right? It doesn't matter if you've been hyper for a month, right? The moment you go silent or you go present, you get demoted to R1. Why? This is just so you can organize your silent and your present players in a certain role. We also use the R1 role for new players. So if you have yet to do any helps or any donations, and more specifically with emphasis on donations, right, you're an R1. Once you donate a few times and we see that you have some helps under your belt and you're hyper, then we'll promote you to R2. So R2 is a position for players that are active, but they may not be overly contributing, right? They may not show up to sieges all the time. And again, that's iffy as well because it also depends on the time zone and if they can make it, if we're doing a siege when they're awake or asleep. And then if they are, right, so you're basically at this point, you're either bare minimum or average activity, right? You're constantly donating, you're helping, maybe you're somewhat socially active, but we have at least confirmed that you are, at bare minimum, an active contributing player, right? So that's where we'll give you R2. R3 is more of a position for people that are within the, for example, we like to position R3s as our next 24. Usually we'll give an R3 position to the top, because again, we base ours in the beginning off of how many players can be wrapped around the first 3 layers of a city. So you can have 12 players around ring 1, which is the ring that's closest to a standard city, not a capital, but to a standard city. And then I don't know exactly how many it is after that. I almost want to say it's almost double, but usually then I'll put the top 24 players in, or the next 24. So it would be numbers 13 through 36? 13, 30, I think that's right. 14, 15, yeah, 6. Yeah, so 36. Then we'll do that based on their troop power. So our top 12 strongest troop power players will be R4s or backbones. And you could extend that to 14 or 16 if you just want to have a couple people as potential subs. And then you go to R3, and that'll be your next 13 through 36 or 16 through 40 in your alliance, right, that have the next strongest troop power. And then that way, when you go into a city siege, you can set up markers saying ring 1 is for R4s, ring 2 is for R3s, and ring 3 is for R2s and R1s, right? And that's an easy way that you can go about structuring your alliance. Now, once you get post after that, and let's say all cities are captured, then you can switch it up and go to more of an overall activity factor, where maybe you're utilizing your alliance ranking leaderboards based on overall activity. Maybe you're doing a little bit more filtering with who's socially active, who's constantly showing up and contributing in a multitude of other ways. But that's an easy way that will help you get to the point of once all the cities are captured for how we go about structuring our rank positions and how you might be able to do yours. Again, that's just one example. Oh, got you. More charming as a person. I see. You say. I think you're like, I was getting on how you would appear more charming and get a person to like talking with you. I mean, I would just say, I mean, if did someone say charming? I mean, I would just say, I mean, if you have to act, if you have to change up your entire demeanor and tone of acting, then I would say you're probably doing too much. I think having a certain, tone, I think for how you talk with people in certain situations can be good. But if you have to change up like your baseline level of just how you go about talking in general, right? Instead of just using more favorable words or sentences or, kind of more neutral dialogue, right? Then I would say you're probably doing more of a disservice to yourself than you are, what you're aiming to try and get out of it. I think it's a lot easier to just be more welcoming in that sense. I mean, and maybe that might be more along the lines of what you're hinting at, where, instead of being, for example, I mean, a lot of it also just depends on what your nature is. I mean, if you're a lead who just wants to, you don't care about engaging with your officers and you just want to lead and whatever you say goes, right? Then yeah, you might have a harder time engaging with officers or even having a loyal or supportive group of them. If you take more of the approach like I was mentioning before, where you are, you proactively reach out to your officers, you want to hear from them, that's a great way to appeal more, I don't know if I want to say charming, but just more favorable in that regard, where you're more open to hearing what your officers have to say or just having more open dialogues with them, whether you're doing that in-game or on Discord. I think approaching officers in a way of where, you're still giving them clear instructions on kind of how you want to play out the alliance and the direction that they're going in is also going to be extremely helpful as well, because you need to have some kind of direction. And also the realistic expectation that not everyone's going to agree with that direction. If people don't agree, they can leave, right? Or if they want to stay, that's fine too, but, they need to make sure that they are, not being a vocal disruption, right, in the alliance. Because keep in mind that there's a lot of other alliances out there, right? People are free to join whomever they want to join. right? But what I often find sometimes happens is you'll have officers or players that join an alliance just because it's the top alliance, and they just have very strong opinions and views, and sometimes they just don't let those things go, right? Like they want to see changes, or they're going to keep pushing an agenda, right? Just because they don't want to leave the alliance they're in, right? And that's kind of when you, as a lead, would have to kind of make a tough call too as well. But anyways, that more or less kind of covers. I really appreciate the charming there. Yeah. But again, that kind of covers our segment, our week for today on managing an alliance. I really appreciate everyone that came out. I think we ended up peaking somewhere around mid 30s or so, which is really cool to still see people that wanted to get some information about how to manage an alliance. Again, keep in mind this is recorded and it will be uploaded. I do have to go and make it to my other meeting that I do have, but as always, I appreciate everyone that shows up, and I will be uploading the VOD. I'm going to be uploading the VOD right after we finish here, and I'll be posting it here in the voice channel chat for anyone that is interested in that, and I'll also be uploading it on my YouTube. And I appreciate all the questions that were asked. I thought the level of engagement we had this week was great, and we'll be looking forward to next week where we're going to have a new topic as well that should be equally as enjoyable. So with that being said, man, as I said, I appreciate everyone who came out. I hope everyone has a good day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And then until next week, take care, and hope everyone has a good one.